What's wrong? You talking in your sleep again?
Designer Christy Smith is giving an award.
Because your design didn't win?
Mine was too weird to win. When I'm designing, I feel like I'm touching the world. Christy Smith stole my design. Gotta get it back for that.
Is there a mistake with the checks?
Mine's is 38.
You're silencing me? Your dismissive language just shut down my very thoughtful explanation. Please read the sign.
Look, you hate Christy Smith. We hate Christy Smith. I have a plan. Together, we empty out every single metro designer in the Bay Area. Grab them wigs. I feel like I should have it all. It's mine anyway.
Our listeners have voted. You guys knew exactly what you were doing because our lives will never be the same again. We're talking about I Love Boosters, and it's happening right now on CinemaShock.
I went to Target the other day, though, and I was just walking through, just singing, I love the boosters, they love the boosters, you should love them too.
It's catchy.
And I'm like, and it's dangerous because it just made me want to steal a lot of things from Target. And so,
I mean, if you're going to steal from somebody, stealing from a giant evil corporation is the way to go.
Yeah, I think Boots would be proud, but here we are. Anyway, welcome. Hello. Welcome to CinemaShock. It's the podcast celebrating all your favorite cult genre movies. I'm one of your hosts, Gary Horn.
I'm your host, Justin Bishop, and our lawyers would like me to say that I am not encouraging you to steal from Target. I'm just saying that hypothetically, if you were to steal, if you were to shoplift, don't do it from like a local mom and pop. Do it from a big evil corporation, right?
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. We would never encourage you to go out and steal things.
You know who would?
Who?
Boots Riley.
You got that right. He would. He definitely is saying something with this movie. That's for sure. And I can't wait to talk about it because I guess right up top, Justin, I think the first thing I said to you after we watched this movie is I turned to you and I said, you could have given me 1,000 guesses at the start of this movie and I would have never picked out what happens in it.
No, not you could. It would be hard to know what's going to happen 5 minutes into, like 5 minutes later in the movie. Like every 5 minutes, something else happens where you're like, well, I didn't call that. That's not what I thought was going to happen. And then by the end, it's just out the window. We're not going to spoil anything here. I guess we'll go ahead and say that up. That we're not going to spoil anything yet, I guess. And so if you haven't seen the movie yet, don't worry about us spoiling things. As we always do on these new release reviews, we'll get into spoilers further on down the line, like towards the end of the episode, but we will be very clear about when that's going to begin. And I usually put it in the show notes and everything too. So if you want to go into this movie knowing absolutely nothing or knowing as little as possible, which I think is the way to go into this movie, I think that is going to be your best experience going into this movie. You don't have anything to worry about. We're not going to spoil anything worth spoiling until we get down towards the end of the episode. So,
yeah, you said something really good there about not knowing anything. But actually, before we talk about that, let me just say we want to give a big shout out to our subscribers on CinemaShock Plus. They are the people that voted on us watching this film this week. And so every month we get to pick out a new release that we talk about. As you know, our podcast is usually more historical, like we go through a director's filmography and that sort of thing. And I can imagine that are we around for enough years, we're eventually going to do a Boots Riley series. We have to. But today we get to talk about one out currently.
Yeah, he's going to have to start putting things out a little bit faster for us to do a proper series down the line, or it's going to be another 30 years before we get 5 movies from him, because it's been 8 years since his last one. Although he did another project in between. We'll talk about that. But yeah, like Gary said, cinemashock.net/plus, you can join. Every membership level includes the ability to cast a vote. So if you want to dictate what we're going to be talking about in June and in July and beyond, there's a lot of cool summer blockbusters and stuff coming out, as well as some cool smaller movies like the one we're talking about today. There's a lot of stuff to choose from. If you want to dictate which movie we're going to come on this show and talk about next, just head over there and join. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, we like this, this is maybe not even a movie that I was going to see this movie regardless, because I love Boots. But Gary, like, would you have seen this movie had it not been voted, or would you have gone out to see it in the theater on opening night, which is what we did?
No hate. I don't know that I would have. I'm just being honest. Like, it wasn't there. There's so many movies out, and I don't go to the theater as much as Justin does. So I have to pick my spots, and I don't. I saw the trailer for this movie, and I watched it like one time, and I thought that looks neat, and I knew that I'd probably see it eventually, but I just don't think I was like jumping at it. And I have to say that I'm glad I did, and I had a lot of fun with this one, and we're going to talk about more of it. But I just think not knowing anything and not having any expectations, it made me like enjoy it even more. I think like I just didn't know what was happening in front of me, and that made it exciting to just see what's next.
Well, were you already familiar with Boots Riley's work prior to this movie, whether his movies or his music?
Yeah. I'm familiar with him as a musician. Also, I saw Sorry to Bother You. So, so I'm familiar with that. I'm familiar with the actors and stuff too. So,
yeah, but you, at least, having seen Sorry to Bother You, you at least like had some semblance of what Boots Riley was going to bring to the table as a director. Although I feel like in this one, he kicks it up a notch. Like, Sorry to Bother You is wild. It's a wild movie. And this one makes it look pretty tame.
it almost makes like he was testing he's testing the waters with Sorry to Bother You.
Right. Yeah. Well, he had a lot more money for this one too, so that probably helps. I think this one was it's like a $20 million production. It's not huge, but it was more than what Sorry to Bother You cost. So, well, that's one thing I want to talk about before we really get into the review of this movie is Boots Riley, because over the last, we saw this a few days ago. We saw it on Thursday night, opening night, like I said. And over the last few days, I've been talking to people about it. People, have asked me about it, or people, at work, they'll ask me, "Hey, have you seen any new movies lately?" Or they'll see that I, posted in my Instagram story or something that I was seeing this movie, and they'll ask me about it. And one thing that I've learned in talking to people the last few days is that a lot of people don't know who Boots Riley is, or they're not familiar with his work, or they're not familiar with his music. So I don't want to assume that everyone listening to this has a familiarity with him. So I want to give a little bit of context as far as where he was coming from when he made this movie, because I think it's a very personal movie. I think he has a very personal vision for all the art that he makes. So I think it's kind of important to know kind of where he came from, because he does only have one other movie under his belt, and that's Sorry to Bother You. He also did a limited series called I'm a Virgo, which hit streaming in 2023, which I didn't even know existed. I think it's on, was it Amazon Prime that it was on? Like, we were sitting in the theater after when the credits started rolling, and we were looking at like IMDb and looking at some of the cameos and stuff that are in this movie, and clicked on them, and I was like, what is I'm a Virgo? I haven't even heard of that. And it's like a 7 episode series that came out in 2023 that I didn't even know existed, and now I've got to go watch it.
Well, yeah, and then you read the review of it. It's a coming-of-age joyride about Coup, a 13-foot-tall man who escapes to experience the beauty and contradictions of the real world. And I'm like, how have I not heard of that? And why have I not seen it?
Why is everyone not talking about that? So, like, I discovered that while we were in the theater, because we were sitting there, waiting through the end credits to see if there was something at the end of the movie, which there is, by the way. So stick around to the end of the credits. There's a little post-credit scene at the end of I Love Boosters. But anyway, Boots Riley, he first came to prominence as the lead vocalist for the hip-hop group The Coup. The Coup was formed in the early 90s. If you're not familiar with The Coup, first of all, you should be. They're incredible. The music is like really like very funk influenced. It's very like danceable, like very catchy. But his lyrics are highly political and very like revolutionary charged. Like he talks a lot about, he's very anti-capitalist. He wouldn't even call himself anti-capitalist. I was reading a review with him today. He's like, "Don't call me anti-capitalist. I'm a communist." Like, let's just get it right. That's
his interview in The Guardian.
Yep, that's the one in The Guardian. Yeah. Yep. So and that's I mean, he had that mind frame when he was doing The Coup back in the 90s. For Boots Riley, music and art have always sort of been an extension of his work as a labor organizer. See, when he was a teenager, I found this pretty fascinating. When he was a teenager, he started his work, his political work, I guess you would say, by supporting cannery worker strikes. And he says he got into that because there was a girl that he knew that was going to the strikes to support the cannery workers who he said, in his words, wanted to flirt with. So he actually got into politics because there was a girl that he had a crush on and he wanted to go hang out with her. But then he got sucked into the movement, right?
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you. And he's always said that his goal is to instigate class struggle through entertainment. He's always done that since the beginning. And then when he released Sorry to Bother You in 2018, to a lot of people, it kind of felt like this filmmaking thing came out of nowhere. Like, oh, here's another musician who wants to be a filmmaker. But Boots Riley actually grew up with the dream of being a filmmaker before he got into music. He grew up in Oakland, California. And when he was in high school, he was writing plays for high school. He was working with local theater groups. Then he went to college at San Francisco State University to study film. And he went there with a heavy focus on documentary and experimental film style. So that was like his goal, was to be a filmmaker. But he was already doing music as well at the time. And while he was a film student, the Coup got noticed by a record label. And since the doors to make a career out of making music had just opened up, and getting the cash to get a movie made seemed kind of impossible to him at the time, he left film school to pursue hip hop. And music kind of gave him an outlet for his storytelling. If you listen to the Coup, a lot of his lyrics are, they're very dense narrative tracks, and so they tell stories. And he would sometimes even direct the music videos to go along with them. So he was still like kind of making movies at the time. They were just set to his own music, which other musicians have done before. Billie Eilish, who just came out with that documentary, that concert film with James Cameron. She's directed her own music videos. Charlie XCX, who just did The Moment earlier this year, same thing. So Boots Riley sort of like dipping his toes into filmmaking through his music. And then Sorry to Bother You, he actually wrote it in like 2011. He had been a telemarketer for a stint. It was kind of inspired by that. He released an album of the same name in 2012, Sorry to Bother You. And he was kind of hoping that the buzz around the album would lead to somebody noticing his screenplay in Hollywood. Then he would get the financing for it. That never really happened. And he was just like, you know what? I'm just going to upload my screenplay onto the internet, let people read it. And he sent it to Dave Eggers for feedback. Dave Eggers is a well-known author. I'm sure you've heard the name. But Dave Eggers called it one of the best unproduced screenplays that he'd ever read. And he ended up publishing it as a paperback book through McSweeney's, which he founded. And that kind of gave that project some real credibility and momentum. So Boots is like, well, maybe this thing can really happen. He gets accepted into the Sundance Institute's Writers Lab and the Directors Lab in like 2015, 2016. And so he was able to mentor under some other filmmakers. He started watching YouTube videos, like behind the scenes videos and documentaries, to kind of teach himself the ins and outs of filmmaking. So he was kind of getting the knowledge of how to make a movie here, but he didn't quite have the confidence to do it himself. And actually, when he went to make Sorry to Bother You, he was worried nobody would give him money to make, especially as a first-time filmmaker, to make this very strange script into a movie. So he approached Richard Ioade. Is that how you say his name? From IT Crowd. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I've never known how to pronounce his last name properly. Ioade, maybe? He approached him to see if he wanted to direct this movie. And Ioade read it, and he told him, he's like, dude, the only person who could direct this is you. Like, nobody else should or could make this movie. The thing is that if you make it as a first-time filmmaker, they're just going to give you less money than they might an established filmmaker. But you're the guy who needs to make this.
Google says it's Ioade. Ioade.
I'm sorry. Say that again?
It's AI. I feel like I had heard Aode. That's why I looked, but it says AI, then OWAADEE. That's how it lists the pronunciation. So that's like Aoade.
Wow, I wasn't even close.
Aoade. Yeah.
Wow. Just keep saying it over and over. It'll sound.
Yeah,
right.
I know. Let's keep fucking it up.
So anyway,
that's what the people pay for.
Yep. Based on his advice, Boots went and made the movie himself. I'm not going to get into that because this is not an episode on that movie. But it debuted at Sundance. It was a big hit at Sundance, and it solidified Boots Riley's unique voice. You know, this was a movie, like I said, that nobody but Boots Riley could make. And I think you could say the same thing about I Love Boosters, because like we said earlier, I Love Boosters is like what he's doing with Sorry to Bother You, just kind of cranked up to 11. So Gary, when you got done watching this, because when we go watch a movie together, especially if we know we're going to review it for the show, we don't discuss it a whole lot afterwards because we want this to be like the first kind of real discussion that we have about it. So when the credits rolled, when you were walking out of the theater, like what was your initial like gut reaction walking out of this?
In this article on NPR, it says R-U-R-D. That's how he says, like the letters R-U-R-D is how he told.
Are we still on this?
I just wanted to go ahead and clear that part up too.
Gary's not listening to a word I'm saying. He's just reading.
Heard you. That's called adding some levity. That's what I'm doing. It's a running gag now in the show.
Are you Artie? That can't be right.
I swear to God, this article said that at the top because they asked him. They said he was answering with such patience as a person who's been asked that a million times.
Yeah,
but that's what he said. But anyway, okay. So leaving the theater, what were my initial? I don't know what I thought. I don't know what. I mean, I knew that I was glad I saw it, and I knew that I liked that I had seen it, and it was just the thing is like there's these so as a guy who I can appreciate cinema. We talk about a lot of cinema here, and
it's in the name.
Also, yeah, and and I guess when I'm saying cinema, I'm saying it in that way that's like italicized, like it's like cinema.
Oh, like you've got a monocle on, and you're like,
yeah, exactly.
in a fucking John Travolta beret.
Right, exactly. That's gonna be my new look, and I guess. I'm also still the guy that's like, when I'm thinking about movies, I love horror, so I'm thinking of Obsession in the theaters right now, or Hokum, and I'm thinking about how Avengers Doomsday is still coming up in December, so I'm pumped for those. And I guess it just has to be this way for a movie like I Love Boosters to come out, and it's like it's got to get through all the static of all of that kind of stuff, and I'm still a consumer in that way, you know, like out there in the world. So it's there's something special that happens, I feel like, when you go to see a movie like this and you don't know what to expect, and then you can walk out, like, by the time the credits hit, you know, I'm still wrapping my brain around everything that just happened, but I know that I've never seen anything like that before. Mm-hmm. And that's how I felt about this, if that explains anything. Like, it's like I saw something... special might be the word. Like, I feel like this movie is special. Like, I think this is like he is an auteur after this. Like, this is something unique that deserves to be made.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost in the vein of someone like some of the filmmakers we talked about on the show, like a David Lynch or a Alejandro Jodorowsky, like where they're not that this movie feels like a movie that either of them made, but the movies that they make could only come from them. Like, they are an incredibly unique vision. They are filmmakers. They are artists whose brains simply work differently, and they simply perceive the world in a way that is unique solely to them, and then regurgitate that, the way they see the world, back onto film. And I feel like Boots Riley is doing the same thing. Like, you could give this script to somebody else, even if it was the same exact script word for word that Boots had written, and it would not come out the same way, because this is filtered through his worldview in every way possible.
I was looking at reviews on Letterboxd, and like literally like Zoe Rose Bryant, who I follow on there, she had put that Boots Riley's brain should be studied for science.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and I was like, that is the best summation of this.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you know, this is I said this when we talked about The Bride, right? The one of the types of movies that really thrills me is the one that makes like a big swing. Like, just even if they're a little bit of a mess, which The Bride is, but it's still a thrilling viewing experience for me, because it's just trying things that other people haven't tried before, even if it's not afraid of looking ridiculous. It's not afraid of going over the top. I'll take an interesting mess over some bland blockbuster that's been focus grouped to death any day of the week. Now, I don't think that I Love Boosters is a mess. I've seen a couple of reviews. I think the review in The Guardian, which was primarily positive review, but I think they gave them 3 out of 5 stars. Like, it wasn't like a glowing review. I think they said that, like, hey, this is got a lot of good ideas, but it's a little bit of a mess. I don't really agree with that. And there might be some people that disagree with me saying that, but I think this movie is exactly the movie that Boots Riley meant for it to be. I don't think it got like away from him or anything. But it is big, and it's a masterclass in like cinematic maximalism. Like, there's nothing small about this movie. Every single creative decision is a big, uncompromising swing. And I sort of found myself marveling at how committed it is to its own vision from start to finish. Like, it is, like I said, I mean, not to use the word twice, but uncompromising in every way.
Which is what's crazy about it is that I feel like, now, granted, I honestly had only watched the first trailer for it, like when it had come out. But to me, it had just been pitched as a pretty simple concept, you know? Like, it's, and we're doing this top of the show here, or the first part of this spoiler free, so I can't get into like all the reasons why it's not, but
yeah,
it's like literally going into the movie, if I had to like write a review or like a summary of it would be like, Corvette, played by Keke Palmer, is a designer, but she's in a system that doesn't care about how creative she is. It only exploits her. And to top it all off, she's been stolen from by a billionaire business mogul, Christy Smith, played by Demi Moore. And so something about how she steals clothes and sells them for cheap, you know? And it's like, and that's like all you see. I feel like in the trailers, at least, like that's how this movie is pitched.
And it's all you should see in the trailers. And that's all you should know going into the movie, because it does go to some pretty... It takes that premise much further than you could ever guess that it would take it. Places that, again, no other filmmaker or writer would have taken it, which we can't really get into the specifics on until we get into spoilers. But I will say that I loved where he took it. I love being surprised by that. I love how weird this movie is, like absolutely, like unapologetically strange, but still like thrilling, like a piece of like pop culture, like art.
Yeah, I feel like I use her a lot for these kind of references, but my wife is the best example of this that I could give for like what you should think about going into this movie. It's because I come back and then she's like, "How was it?" And I was like, "It was really good." And she's like, "What was that about again?" I think I remember the trailer. And I was like, it's about like capitalism, like modern capitalism. But I was like, okay, so, and I gave her kind of that summation. And I think I basically summed it up. I was like, imagine you draw a picture and a rich person steals the picture and prints it on t-shirts and they sell them for $1 million. You don't make anything. And now you and your friends sneak out and you're stealing your pictures back. And,
right. Yeah.
I was like, that's kind of what it was going for. And she's like, okay. And I was like, but it was crazy. And she's like, how is that crazy? So anyway, my wife, who, you know, God love her, she doesn't care about spoilers. I started like telling her about things that happened in the movie. And about like 5 or 10 minutes into the discussion, she's like, wait, are we still talking about I Love Boosters? She's like, I feel like you're telling me about a different movie. And I'm like, I am not. I'm telling you about the same movie.
Yep, it's a winding road. But yeah, I mean, you know, and even that description of his themes, like it being anti-capitalist, which it very, very much is, still only kind of scratches the surface of what he's trying to say with this movie. I mean, visually, like I said, big swings, but I think you could say even thematically, it takes some big swings because Boots Riley's never subtle in his messaging, whether in his music. He's got a song called "Kill Your Landlord." I mean, that's pretty straightforward. He's not beating around the bush, right? He's telling you what he wants to tell you.
He's saying raise the rent.
So I like, you know, not every movie needs to be subtle. Like sometimes you don't need a subtle touch or a light touch. Sometimes you need a fucking sledgehammer. And Boots Riley came out swinging. You know, like he is not the kind of guy who's going to like tiptoe around his message.
Yeah, I will say though that like sometimes when a movie gets so you know, this This may be the part that's a bit prickly for some people. There are movies I've disliked that I think are too on the nose, like that they just really like say it in the movie like over and over again. I'm like, okay, I fucking get it. Shut up. Like,
well, yeah, but it also depends on the delivery system.
Well, I was going to say the delivery in this movie, though, I don't ever feel like did that. Like, I mean, it's obviously there. It is obviously there, but he does it in a way that is fun.
It's not preachy.
Yeah, it just never feels like that preachy. Like, it just feels like also you could watch this movie and it's just like a crazy ride. And,
right.
You know, that kind of thing.
But it's also like not subtle. It's not like in the background, or it's not subtext. Right?
It's like the second you let the point leak in, it's all you'll see. So it's hard to explain how, for some reason, this one didn't bother me with the message, but it also like like I didn't think it was. He did it how you're supposed to do it, as I guess what I'm trying to say. It feels like this is the way to put a message in a movie. Like if we're talking about They Live from John Carpenter, to bring it back to him again for some reason, because we're talking about him, he's on my mind a lot. Like that movie is obvious, but it is also in a fun way. And it's, that kind of thing.
Well, other ones that I mean, The Bride did the same thing. The Bride got accused of being heavy-handed, although it didn't really bother me. I mean, there's that one line where when she screams "Me too," and that's like, yeah, okay, you didn't have to do that. That's a little much.
That's what I mean. That's a great point. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like that line was the only time in that movie that I was just like, really, that feels unnecessary.
But the rest of the movie, I think it delivered well. I think the substance does a good job, and I think if you want to talk about like the substance and this, I think one way that you can be a little more heavy-handed in your messaging is through satire, because both of those movies are satirical, and The Bride's not necessarily. But I think when you're doing satire, you can afford to be a little bit over the top in your messaging, because everything else about the delivery is over the top, and this movie is very over the top. And so speaking of that, I want to talk a little bit about the kind of the world that Boots Riley has built in this movie, like the environment that it's set in, because it's ostensibly set in Oakland, California, which is where Boots Riley is from. It's where he's lived pretty much his whole life. It was filmed in Atlanta primarily, I think, but which is interesting. But it is still set in Oakland. But it's like an incredibly heightened, often cartoonish version of Oakland. Like there's nothing particularly realistic about it. There's a house or an apartment building that sits at like a 45-degree slant, and it's a running kind of gag through the movie. But in this movie, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. like somebody in this world would have built that. I do have to give some props to Christopher Glass, the production designer here, because his work is phenomenal. Natasha Breyer, the cinematographer, who did like the Neon Demon, which if you've seen that is a beautiful looking movie as well. So Natasha Breyer, obviously an incredibly talented cinematographer. The world that they're helping Boots Riley build here is really impressive, I think.
Oh God, like the cinematography is spot on. Like there is that son of a bitch Dean Cundy would be proud. It was.
Well, speaking of that, so Natasha Breyer used Panavision lenses, which is what Dean Cundy
see
uses.
that.
Did you see this where she had like a lens like specially made
new
for
lenses?
For the scenes where there are these like there's this recurring close up of Lakeith Stanfield, and it sort of like vibrates in a weird way. And the way that she filmed those was with these brand new lenses that she had made specifically for this movie that she had Panavision make for her, which is wild to me.
No, I loved it. That's especially fun when you can find these crossovers with like our ongoing series that like these new ones that you can, even if they're not like necessarily like intentional, but it's just fun to like connect it to something else.
Yeah.
And that was something I locked in on, that the Panavision cameras. I thought that was cool that they like took we'll have the Halloween episode and we can talk about Panavision, being kind of newer at that time, or
the Panaglide was new. Yeah.
The Panaglide was new. Yeah. And it's cool to see, like, this is another movie where, like, a new kind of lens was used. It's just kind of neat to see something. I don't know. I just love that kind of stuff.
Well, and if we're talking about the world building, I think, especially in a movie where fashion takes kind of front and center in the plot, you got to talk about the costume designer on this movie. Shirley Kurata is her name. She did the costumes for Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is another like maximalist movie, you could say. But her work here is really incredible. I mean, you've got all these like monochrome designs that Demi Moore's character has created, where like every one of her stores has like a different color. So everything in the store is that color. And that's her working directly with Christopher Glass, because she had to like match the color of the costumes to like, she would like get paint chips from him of what color he was going to paint it and try to like match the fabric exactly or as close as possible, so that you've got this fully monochrome environment. I also found it really funny that like that's the way that Demi Moore's character is selling fashion, but every time you see her, she wears nothing but black and white, no color at all. I'm not sure exactly what Boots is saying with that, but it's a fun choice, I think.
Yeah, I don't even know that I noticed that right away, but that's pretty interesting, because the colors are something that definitely stand out to you when you watch this, like just how this movie pops. Like it's just visually, it's just engaging to me.
Oh yeah, the wardrobe, the sets, the textures of everything, like the world that Boots Riley is building here, kind of like, it's a cliche thing to say, but it feels like an active character of its own. Like it feels like a character in the story. Everything in here is like, it's hyper stylized and dense and very deliberate. Like this is a very deliberate vision of Oakland, California that he's creating here.
The other thing I wanted to mention, which I guess we can't talk a ton about yet, but the special effects on this thing I thought was interesting. Just to tie it back, I mentioned Avengers Doomsday earlier. The special effects coordinator on this was a guy named Matt Dangle, who is like, he works on, maybe this is just a Hollywood thing, but he seems to be like, he is Marvel, like a Marvel go-to. Like he is Ant-Man and the Wasp, Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Infinity War. Like he's all of those things. And so it's kind of cool that there is that tie to that there, but because there are some awesome special effects in this.
Yeah, they look nothing like what you would see in a Marvel movie.
Right.
Much more interesting in my opinion.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, and those special effects are very like unconventional, I guess, for what you would expect from from most movies in general, honestly. We'll talk, there's one particularly that I want to talk about in our spoiler section, but there are some things, like there's a scene where Keke Palmer's in the leaning apartment building and she starts running and her legs start like spinning around like the Roadrunner, right? Where they're kind of like a blurry spin. It's very silly and cartoonish, but it's almost deliberately phony looking in a way that feels deliberate. Like it feels like they meant to make it. They didn't want it. I mean, there's no way you can make that look real. So let's just go over the top and make it look like a Looney Tunes.
Some review I read called it a leftist Looney Tunes, and so that it was just if that feels right. I wasn't sure how much we'd get into like some of those things, but like it's just there's some really over the top stuff in this movie that ends up happening again compared to like how it's pitched, which I feel like pitches it a little over the top, but like more grounded than I feel like
you actually get. Yeah. I mean, you could also extend that line of thinking, I think, to the score, which is by the Tune Yards, who I was not familiar with prior to this, but the score is very unconventional and very like it's like somebody looked at a rule book for what a movie score should sound like and then just ripped every page out and said, you know what? I'm going to do the opposite of all of this. Like, I'm just going to do what I want to do. It's got this weird, like, rhythmic circus music energy to it. Like, there's a lot of, like, honking horns and, like, weird, just very strange instrumentation. But the way that Riley uses it is, it doesn't really sit underneath the scenes in the background like so many musical scores do. And for a lot of music scores, that's what you want. That's their function. Their function is to elevate like what you're seeing on screen, to manipulate your emotions. I mean, music in movies have a lot of functions. Here, the score is never like in the background. It's never being subtle. It's not passive, I guess is a good way to say it. It literally like feels like it's driving the movie forward. Like it is this constant sound that moves you from one scene to the next. Because this movie it never slows down. It is moving from beginning to end. This score got released on streaming services on Friday, and I've been listening to it ever since. I just think it's a blast.
Yeah, I love the music on this one, and these 2 yards were in Sorry to Bother You, and I knew that I liked them as composers for a film, I guess, even then, and yeah, I suppose I would expect from somebody like Boots Riley that music's going to be a huge part of this, but all of these things that we're talking about, like it makes it like a total package that like I think it benefits you to see it in a theater. Like you would normally think, like maybe if you're like me, and I'm just incriminating myself here, that I'm thinking like, oh, I'm excited for Avengers Doomsday in the theaters, that kind of thing. Like that demands to be seen in the theater. And but it's like, man, it's this movie really does benefit from being on a big screen with the surrounding the sound that comes out, and it just so I would say, if it was up to me on should you see it in the theater, like definitely because of the music and all of the other stuff we've just talked about.
Yeah, it's a big movie, so it deserves that big experience of going to see it. Real quick, Gary, I want to talk about the cast of this movie because it's got a fairly decent size ensemble.
It has a cast.
Yeah,
it has a cast too. I forgot.
It's got a lot of people in it. We've already mentioned Keke Palmer. She's kind of the lead, kind of the anchor of everything. We love Keke Palmer. She's amazing. But I feel like her performance here is a little bit different than what you usually get out of her.
Well, she's normally, I don't know, Keke Palmer. Like she's just lovable and she's just great. And in this movie, she's definitely hitting on a different note. Like she's more serious and somber a little.
Yeah,
bit,
which is and it's a very funny movie, and she's still very funny in it. But normally she has this energy to her. Like if you've seen Nope or One of Them Days, which are both great performances from her, I feel like that's like her natural energy that she gives, that sort of zip bang, like high octane comedy. Like she's very funny, very witty. She doesn't really go that route here. She gives more of a grounded performance, I guess you would say. There's almost like more of an internal quality to her character than what you normally get out of her. Like she kind of is the thing that keeps all this craziness around her from falling apart, but still getting like great comedic moments of her own. Like that scene where they're even like physical comedy. There's a scene where they go boosting and she comes out with all the stuff they've stolen stuffed into her inside of her own clothes, and she comes out looking like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and it's just that's a very funny like physical performance. But yeah, it is very different than what you normally get from her, but I think she's fantastic in it.
I read somewhere that Boots Riley had seen it was Pimp from 2018 and Alice from 2022, and I don't know. This was the thing I'd read said that he had reached out to her directly in social media to appear there because he thought that he had not seen how flexible she could be in her acting in other roles previously, but then that like interested him in her, and that set up the talk to star in this.
What are the other lead actors? You've got
Taylor Page.
Taylor Page is in it, and Naomi Ackie is those are kind of the three, and then you've got Poppy Lou, who comes in a little bit later on as sort of the fourth lead, I guess you would say. They're the gang who's doing the boosting of the title. So that's kind of like
interestingly, another thing I read was Taylor Page actually used to be a server at this restaurant that Keke Palmer used to come into all the time, and she would ask advice and stuff about breaking into acting.
Oh, nice. That's
kind of
cool.
neat. So it's a nice little moment for them to star in a movie together. Also worth noting that Ackie, I think, is British, so good on her for getting an Oakland, California accent down.
She's really, I mean, all three of them are really great. Poppy Lou is really great in this, I think, when she pops into the into the movie, she like brings a different energy to the group, and she kind of brings like a plot pivot, I guess you would say, when she shows up, because she doesn't show up till maybe like halfway through the movie, probably, right?
Right.
And then Aiza Gonzalez, who I think is incredible anyway. I love her character in this. I love the look of her character with her like drawn on like eyeliner eyebrows and her little vape that she's got all the time. It's a fantastic character.
Yeah, she's great. And
Violetta.
we have to mention Lakeith Stanfield, because I think I
Oh.
said to you in the theater, I was like, the streak is still alive that I don't think I've ever seen a movie he's in that I don't like.
He's so good. I mean, he's the lead. He's the lead of Sorry to Bother You, but you've seen him in Jordan Peele movies, and so he's every time he shows up in something, he just knocks it out of the park. And his character here is sort of like a somewhat minor character that kind of recurs throughout the movie, but also one of the most entertaining parts of the movie. And another thing I can't really talk too much about until we get into spoilers, but his character turns out to be pretty important to what happens at the end. And one of his scenes is probably the scene in the movie where I just like sat back and went, oh, what the fuck is going on in this movie? Like that was sort of the moment where I was like, all right, we're in a different territory here. And you know the one I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I think that was the point where my wife was like, are we talking about the same movie right now?
Yeah. And then you've got Will Poulter, who plays Grayson, who is like he manages one of these retail stores. And I've never really seen Will Poulter do anything quite like this either. I mean, he does funny stuff. He's always kind of brought in as kind of the funny guy, but not quite what he's doing here. Like this is something new for him.
Yeah, but he's great at it. He seems very natural. So
yeah,
that's what you're looking for. I love that his hair changes with the environment. So that's nice.
Yeah. But the performance that I keep coming back to in this is Demi Moore. Demi Moore is basically the villain. I think she is one of the highlights of this movie. I love her performance here. She's just like, it's just a very kind of weird performance, but her character, Christy Smith, she's the fashion mogul who they're stealing from her stores, basically, right? But it's like fast fashion. Like it's all like bullshit fast fashion stuff that she's designs that she's stolen from other people. But what I like about this character, the way that it's written, is that she is unrepentant. She is one of these villains that you kind of like love to hate because Demi Moore's so good in the role. She has all these like weird little ticks, things that she does with her hands and stuff that are very funny once you notice them. But the way that Boots writes her is he does not offer her a single shred of sympathy. Like she doesn't have this like misunderstood backstory. You do get a backstory from her, but nothing that makes you like feel bad for her in any way whatsoever. She never has there's never an arc where she like sees the error of her ways. She is a villain through and through from beginning to end, and you never like feel bad for her. You only see her as the villain. Like she is the system that they're fighting against, just as a person.
I don't know what to say about her. I feel like she is just having the time of her life lately. Like she is just doing these roles that are, I don't know, just not what I expected to come from Demi Moore, but I guess that's what you do eventually. Yeah. Like you just say, she's got the name, she's got the success. Like she can do what she wants to do, and she's choosing some really cool stuff from the substance to like this movie.
Yeah, for sure. So before we get into spoilers, because I think it's about that time probably, I do want to mention something that I think is central to what Boots Riley is doing with this movie. Like Boots Riley is a filmmaker who, well, let me put it this way. Boots Riley is not a filmmaker who happens to have political opinions, right? His films are a direct, seamless extension of the anti-capitalist themes that he's been shouting into microphones for 30 some odd years now, right? Yeah. And that's not incidental here. It is built into the movie, into the story that he's trying to tell. I mean, the movie, you mentioned it earlier, but it literally shares a title with a track from a Coup album from Pick a Bigger Weapon, which came out 20 years ago. It came out in 2006. So he's been saying this for a long time. There's a song in that called I Love Boosters. It's got like a lot. There's a line in it that I wrote down that says, "We know there'd probably be no one in prison if rights to food, clothes, and shelter were a given." That could be the thesis statement for this movie. Like I Love Boosters, I think this movie is basically a Coup album made with a camera. Like he's saying all the same things with this movie.
Yeah, when you look back on the Coup, they were definitely one of the more political rap groups that would have been around at the time, you know. So
Yeah.
it's never been something he hides at all. So
No.
he's deliberately going in with a message. Now you there may be people that don't like that message, but that's not for you. Like, I mean, this is this guy making the movies about things he knows about and things he wants to talk about, ideas that he has and believes in. So and I love that he's finding like clever ways to deliver that information.
Yeah, I mean, boosting it's not a term that I'm super familiar with outside of like the song of his, I guess, is where I first heard it probably. But I find it interesting how the film reframes shoplifting or boosting. It kind of reframes the thinking around it entirely, because instead of buying into the media panic around organized like retail crime, which is something that was propagated by police organizations trying to get more funding, but Riley positions these women who are doing this as running an underground, like it's like an economic coping mechanism, because like her Keke Palmer's character, you know, she's drowning in debt. It's literally personified by a giant boulder that she keeps seeing, like her debt. She's squatting in an old chicken fast food restaurant. Like she is economically not doing great. This is her way of coping with that. The clothes that they're boosting were originally inspired by working class communities of color. They were commodified by the fashion industry, personified by Demi Moore's character, and then sold back to those same communities at prices that they can't afford. So in the world of the film, boosting isn't seen as criminal. It's more of like, it's a reclamation. The only person in this that actually looks down on it, the only person who considers it a crime in the movie is the villain, who is basically the man, the system.
Yeah, in the Guardian interview that Boots Riley did, he talks about just the who's he call out? It was Walgreens, I think he calls out in that article, talking about how they had talked about closing stores in California, I think it was, just because they were saying like stealing was affecting that, and that was the reason they had to shut it down. But then they were caught on like a mic, like a hit mic, that there was a discussion between the CEOs or something, or the managers, whatever, talking about how it really wasn't that. It was just, just profit in general caused the stores to close. It wasn't, specifically related to this. So he points his finger at that sort of stuff. And you had mentioned the movie is very, I was going to say anti-capitalist, but I think specifically in that article is like what we talked about up top, like where you mentioned, like he kind of is telling critics, stop calling me anti-capitalist, like stop being afraid of communists, because that's what he is, like he's just saying,
share the wealth is what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, the main a big theme of this movie that I think doesn't give anything away is just that it feels like it's that the billionaire class is building their entire empires also off of stealing. So why can't workers steal also, is essentially what he's saying.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a recent trend of these like eat the rich satires, like The Menu, or I mean, you could throw Glass Onion in there. I don't know when this trend started, maybe with Parasite, which is one of the better, I mean, all the movies I just named are good, but some of these eat the rich things, and like what was the Ready or Not, like stuff like that, like, which are very fun, but they ultimately don't have a lot to say beyond surface level, right? There's this, they're ultimately fairly cynical. They mock wealthy individuals for cheap laughs and then end with some sort of act of revenge that doesn't really change anything. But Riley's doing something a little bit different, because he's not necessarily interested in revenge. Keke Palmer's character is somewhat trying to get revenge on this, but this is more about collective power. Like the film's thesis is that the system can only be disrupted when people build actual organized solidarity across borders, and not just across like this crew in Oakland, but across the world. That's what he's trying to say.
Yeah, he's saying like it's all rigged against you, basically. Like if you're told if you work hard, if you try, like that you'll get somewhere, you'll do something, but the game's rigged against you, basically. Like it's you're all you have to invent a different game. You have to change the rules of the game to build something. So he's not even talking about like rehabilitating the current system. He's like tearing it down and like just starting a new one is essentially where Boots Riley is at this. I was trying to think of a good analogy, but I I don't know. I'm struggling right now. It's just like I was like, it's like if you're playing with your toys and then a bully takes your toy and then you could like punch the bully in the face and take back your toy, but that's just for like that day.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, you have to like get with the people who make the toys and you have to like fucking gang beat him up.
Well, I mean, what happens at the end of this movie is it becomes a bigger movement that is structurally changing the entire like chain of exploitation, right? It's
Right.
This is a movie. It's weird. Some people have said, well, how can, if Boots Riley says he's a communist, right? How can he make a movie that's obsessed with high fashion and luxury and all this stuff? But desiring beauty and style and art is not the problem here. The problem is that chain of exploitation and the stolen labor required to produce those things under late stage capitalism. That's what he's sort of railing against. He's using this visual medium to map out that entire supply chain. We see the luxury storefronts, and you might walk into a mall and like not think about anything beyond the structure of that store that you walk into, right? But Boots is showing you not only the luxury storefronts, but the boosters on the streets, the underpaid retail workers who work in those stores and whose paychecks suck, and then the international factories that are essentially sweatshops. And he makes you feel the friction of the system rather than just delivering a thesis statement. He's telling you how it all works. He's showing you the nuts and bolts. He's showing you how the sausage gets made.
Yeah, it's tough to talk about like how he does this without getting into spoilers, so we will do that, I think. But he connects this thing all the way through. Like, that's one thing I thought was kind of cool. Like, connects it from start to finish, how this system works, basically, is what he's trying to do. And I think that's really cool. I do also love, well, and going back to another thing we were talking about, again, from the Guardian interview, which was a really great interview with him, but another couple of points. One was, now that I'm thinking about it, there was that point about being too heavy-handed with the message, that sort of thing. He talks about, I mean, he basically says in there, like he gets that, some people are going to think it's weird for the sake of being weird and all of that. But also he knows that like, yeah, I could like stand on a soapbox and like preach about Marxist theory for like an hour or two and, people's eyes are going to glaze over essentially. But like, I'm doing this a different way. It's like, and so we're trying to like Trojan horse this thing basically about
package it as entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it was that interview that the interviewer even tries to like kind of corner him a little bit. And it's like, well, how do you justify, you're taking Hollywood money and you're doing this thing and you're, like, doesn't that just negate like everything else you're saying, and he's just like, I think he calls it a weak liberal critique or something like that.
Yeah.
Or something. But basically just is saying in there that, yeah, okay, every major theater chain somewhere down the line is backed by like BlackRock or Vanguard or like some of these big companies or whatever. But unless I'm going to screen it like on a bed sheet or something, somewhere, then what's, I can't worry about that part of it. Where, he's not.
You got to get the message out.
His goal is not keeping his hands completely clean. It's to use these methods to send out a different message than what's normally being sent out. He's hijacking the airwaves, basically, here.
Yeah.
Is what he's trying to do.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good time. This might be a good time to get into those spoilers then. So final thoughts for the folks who don't want to go into spoilers. It sounds like we're both a big thumbs up on this one. This is I fucking love this. I love going to a movie theater and seeing something like this that feels like it snuck through the cracks, of the Hollywood system and somehow miraculously got made. Shout out to the guys at fucking Neon, because they keep backing stuff like this. That they are becoming one of those studios where, like, I see their name pop up before a movie or before a trailer, and I'm like, I'm in, because they keep doing interesting shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned Marvel more than I planned to, but it's like, while I can appreciate like while I like those kind of movies, it's really important that these kind of movies keep getting made too.
Yeah.
Things you've never seen before, things that are really unique and special, like that they just, I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know how this happened. Like, this is, I walked out knowing I had never seen anything quite like that before. And I think it's worth seeing it on the big screen. If I was being overly critical of it, like some of these people, I see where they're coming from with like maybe a mess, but I think it's worth seeing, because I think I don't know how you don't have a good time with it.
Yeah, no, I don't either. It's I'm sure there are some more conservative audiences that are not going to have a good time with it because it might be hitting a little closer to home. But to their values.
It's not for everybody, that's for sure. I mean, this is not going to get positive reviews over on the Daily Wire. But
no, Ben Shapiro, I can't wait to see Ben Shapiro's review of this movie, if he'll even see it.
I can't imagine he's even going to bother.
No. Well, so let's get into spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie and you want to go in blind, which I think is how you should watch it. Once again, I think that is the way to see this movie. Because it goes to some places that I genuinely didn't see coming, and I think that it is to your benefit to experience it the same way. So now's the time for you to hit pause, come back after you've seen the movie, but go see the movie because it's great. And this is the kind of movie that we want to see supported in theaters, because we want this movie to make money. We want Boots' next movie to be a $50 million epic. I want him to just give him the money to make whatever he wants to make, because he's got a voice, which is a rarity these days. All right, you ready for spoilers, Gary?
I'm ready for spoilers. Where do we start in spoilers? There's a magic bag. There's skinless people walking around. There's a fucking tilted skyscraper, which you kind of mentioned before. There's the fucking giant debt ball. There's cartoon legs. What am I missing here? There's
a lot. There's a lot. There's Eric Andre in a futuristic tank.
Right, there's a Mad Max.
there's a car chase up a staircase in a mall. There's a lot, but basically this movie starts out, like you said earlier, based on what the trailer says, this highly stylized boutique heist comedy. That's what it starts out, and then it throws you out a fucking window. Now, I don't want to oversell the pivot too much, because I think part of what makes it work so well is that the movie escalates rather than just twist. There's not like an I gotcha moment. It's not this cheap like thing where it just throws you for a loop. When the sci-fi elements of this enter the film, and they enter hard, right? They get thrown in pretty immediately. It is one of the most genuinely surprising theatrical experiences I've had in a while, because you don't see it coming in the first act of the movie. It just shows up, and you're like, okay, now I really have no idea where we're going.
Yeah, it definitely gets bigger, so much bigger.
Well, Jian Hu, which is Poppy Lu's character, she's sort of the hinge point. Like, she shows up in the movie. She starts cleaning out these design stores before the Velvet Gang. That's what they call themselves, right? The Velvet Gang.
That's
before
right.
They can hit them. It turns out she's been using this teleportation device to send the merchandise directly back to the Chinese sweatshop that manufactured it. So there's this whole thing where she and a coworker stole this device from the factory that they were developing to cut down like on shipping costs and stuff. But she's using them to build leverage for better wages and better working conditions for the factory workers. It's like, what kind of brain comes up with this, Boots Riley? Like, what? Like that amazes me. That because I cannot imagine writing this movie from beginning to end, and you get to a point in your script, and you're like, what this movie needs? A teleportation device.
Yeah, except that it feels like a guy to me who was trying and nailed it on how to explain some concepts from Marxism. Like it, and I am not a political philosopher. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not, the most educated person in the world. But it felt like he was also trying to dumb it down for me. So for like just people in general, just trying to give you a way to visualize some of the things that, I mean, the easiest one would probably be solidarity globally, basically. Just like how the hell do a bunch of shoplifters in Oakland organize a union with factory workers in Shenzhen they don't even speak the same language. They can't. And it's like, this is like a cheat for that, basically. Like you're connecting California to China, and they're able to like see each other and coordinate with each other, basically, and attack like the whole supply chain that like makes these billionaires wealthy. Like basically the idea would be like it's the literal manifestation of like workers of the world unite. Like that is what that is. It's so I think that's a huge part of it. Like it's just like him finding a good way to represent that. There's some others, but I'll shut up for a second.
Well, I mean, there's also this this teleportation device they discover has a couple of other settings on it. It's a situational accelerator, which is a setting that heightens whatever conflict is already inherent in whatever you pointed at, which becomes a big thing at the end. And then there's a deconstruction setting, which kind of breaks whatever you pointed at down to the elements that made it. So those give Boots a lot of opportunity to make statements on the very like nature of commerce and creating these things on, like in this case, clothing on such a large scale, where it actually leads to the exploitation of human beings.
Yeah, well, it's just like the high price of this, like a $200 jacket in the store, and mostly, people just see like the cool jacket. You're not supposed to see the sweatshop that made it. You're the unpaid labor that goes behind it, or how cheap, like the retail workers are working for, that kind of thing. And so this bag again, it like connects all these things. So like it's like the second that Kiki Palmer interacts with Poppy Lou, like it's just like there's no distance between them, and that you're tied to another human being, and seeing like that there can be misery behind some of these high-end things that are made for people. There's a human cost also that goes into the production of this thing.
Yeah. And then you get into, I mean, there's even like commentary on propaganda that's sort of perpetrated by the system, in this case by Christie. Like in all of her stores, there's this big screen playing like news clips of people who they seem to be like, I mean, it's very clearly propaganda, like what they're saying, to the point where it's absurd what they're saying, because you're like, that's not right. And then you find out later in the movie that Christie, who you find out through this backstory is this like math and science prodigy, she has invented literal skin suits, and this like think tank of people has been wearing them to appear like different people in these videos for the purposes of propaganda. And then, because we have to talk about it, the film renders the skinless people in stop motion animation. Which, as soon as that happened, when they walked into that room and they started talking about it, then they started like slipping their skin off. I was like, "What? This has gone to a lot of weird places already." But now we're backstage at this like fashion show, and people are stripping their skin off. But instead of it being like this gory, like horror movie, like fucking Hellraiser image,
I was going to say they're like Frank from Hellraiser,
right? Instead, they're this claymation, It takes this idea that could be distractingly gory and kind of makes it almost whimsical. I feel like it makes it more palatable to people who don't like a gory movie, but you still get the point. When it happens, at least for someone like me, I just like was like, what a weird decision. That makes me so happy that he was like, you know what, we're gonna do stop motion animation for this scene, and then. Every time you see they don't like cut back and forth. Every time you see the skinless people on the screen, including like in the big chase scene and stuff, it's all stop motion animation.
Yeah, I'm probably overthinking it, but I couldn't help but imagine that like in the process of this, it's like on one hand, it's like, okay, is this a practical answer? Maybe it is, rather than using like, because you got a guy who obviously knows Marvel stuff to do like some special effects and stuff like that. But now I think, granted, on Marvel stuff, he's not really like the main special effects guy on Marvel stuff, so he probably has his own ideas too. But like, I couldn't help but think too that it could be a statement on just like this is old school, like just the same old shit, like just the, you know what I mean? Like maybe there was something there too. Like it's just like, it's just covered up with new skin, but it's just, the same stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is Riley using surrealism the same way he used it in Sorry to Bother You. It's not just weirdness for weirdness sake. I'm sure there is an element where they're like, this is going to be a lot cheaper if we need to find a cheap way to do this. And then somebody or Boots or somebody was like, hey, why don't we do stop motion animation? And they're like, well, that's just weird enough to like be exciting. But what he's doing is he's literalizing something that's already happening. Like these are people who have literally shed their identities to serve as instruments of manufactured consent. The skin suit is like the propagandist uniform, basically. It's just that here you can actually see it. Like it's a physical thing that they can take off.
Yeah. That part definitely. By that point, you're like I've entered a whole new world. I mean, I think you get there a little bit with, definitely with Lakeith Stanfield, his character. Which fine, I'll talk about.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about since
he sucks your soul out through your pussy, or your penis, because he seemed to say like he was just like I just suck it out through your genitalia. Which
he says
I think is the point.
He says through down there is what is specifically what he says.
Yeah, which I think is the point. I don't think he's necessarily meant to be just like, that it's supposed to be like a guy taking over women or whatever. It's meant to be, I feel like he's meant to be, as a demon, he's meant to be like the distraction. Like the life of like, this getting sucked into like a model and being like this person. At least to me, that's how I took it, is like he is the thing pulling Keke Palmer's character away from focusing on what she wants to focus on.
Well, but she does a pretty good job of ignoring him for most of the movie. Like she does a pretty good job of resisting him.
Yeah. She doesn't fall for it, but I just mean like I feel like that's his function is, in the story.
There's a scene where they're telling a story about him, which if you're in this part, hopefully you've seen this, but yeah, they're telling a story about him going down on a woman. Some other girl that they know, and they show this in flashback, and there's just this really long, uncomfortably long cunnilingus scene where it's just like a shot of him between her legs, just like chowing down, and you're like, this is going on way too long. Why do they keep cutting back to him looking up at her? And then there's this just wide shot all of a sudden of his like real demon body. It's like the snake-like demon body holding her up in like 10 feet in the air. And it is so absurd that like, I mean, my wife was there with us and she was cackling during this. We both were. We were both just losing our shit just over that image, because it's like, you could have offered me $1 million to say, what's the next shot in this going to be? And I would never have guessed that that's what it was going to be.
Yeah, that was out of nowhere, and it blew my mind. And then I think even at that point in the movie, you're watching it and you're thinking like, maybe this is like a metaphor of some kind they're using. But in the movie, in the world of the movie, no, that is what's happening. He is a literal demon, like sucking the soul.
Yeah, it's not a metaphor. He is a literal demon, and everyone seems very like chill about that.
They're like, oh yeah, that's what he does.
Makes sense.
Yeah, okay. All right, I see it now. Just like, that's okay. I do want to go back a second to, God, I'm gonna hate myself for doing this, but to go back a second to the machine that they find, because I feel like it's like, on one hand, it's like this MacGuffin that exists that like is just in the movie, but on the other hand, I feel like it's like his, I call it a cheat, but yeah, it's like the cheat code for like getting all the Marxist theory in there, because it has all these different settings and everything, and so we kind of mentioned it, but like it has the deconstruction setting which I had noted that, God, and if Boots Riley ever heard this, he would probably be disappointed in me for trying to explain this because he's obviously read more about this than I ever have. But like, I mean, I think that's representing historical materialism. That's like, we're taught to not even, I don't know, just over time you forget like to not even think about like where things come from, like what this step leads to this step leads to this step, you know, like this didn't just appear out of nowhere. There was a process here. And so, and that means like in this movie, like, you know, thinking about the not only the materials that went into it, but again about the labor that goes into it, or the person who gets sick from sandblasting these jeans, or you know, that kind of thing. So there was to have an understanding of where your shit comes from, basically.
And that's literalized in the movie because when Jianhu first uses the deconstructing mode on like some clothes that she had helped made, there was a cut on her hand, and by deconstructing it back to its original materials, that also included returning the labor that she put into it back into her body, and her cut is healed. And then at the end of the movie, because it has this really big happy ending, kind of, her mother, who's gotten cancer from the sandblasting, which is one of the reasons that kind of sparks the strike in China. At the end, because the clothes that she had made were deconstructed, her mother's cancer, which was caused by the work put into them, has been reversed. So the cost of her labor has been returned to her body. So it's a way that Boots can literalize, showing the effect that this has on the humans that make it.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. And then the dialectical materialism is, I think, the point with like the accelerator, the situational accelerator. It's like, my understanding of that is more like, and I think conservatives to an extent even have this same belief that there is supposed to be a tension in society. Like I think the difference between like some people like conservatives would be like, you know, like there's two opposing forces going at it with each other, basically. But like, I think Marx's whole theory would be like that tension forces things forward, and there is no status quo ever. There's like, you're always pushing the barriers to like move forward, basically. I think conservatives would probably look at it as like, yeah, there is that, but things should like, it's to help keep things the same. I don't know. It feels like a little bit like that. And again, I'm not the philosopher, so I don't know. But I think the idea of that accelerator is to show like, let's just fast forward, basically. Like, it's just like him, just like, I had a fast forward button for this.
Well, like, fast forward, but also enhancing. Like like when they pointed at the protesters at the fashion show at the end, there's a small group of protesters among a big crowd, but then when they point that at the crowd, it's like that labor movement has spread to all of the other workers. So it's showing like it's enhancing that and spreading it around immediately. You know, and that leads to what is ultimately a pretty like utopian ending, I guess you would say. Like everything's kind of like they basically end all the problems that we've been talking about that he's railing against in this movie. At the end of the movie, that's why I called it a happy ending. He basically creates a perfect world where this has all been solved based on this one movement that started with 3 people just trying to take back what was theirs.
Right. And yeah, it's like the more we talk about it, the more I'm really like just thinking, you know, he just put like how we talked about Inland Empire with David Lynch. We got to the point where we're just like, oh, that he's just doing like transcendental meditation, like on screen, like showing you a way to view what this is.
Yeah.
And like, it's like with Boots Riley here, he's like, this is Marx's theory. Here it is in this movie.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can kind of get there. Like even what would be, how could you mention Karl Marx if I didn't mention like workers controlling the means of production, and the what was the other thing I was thinking about, means of distribution, and that goes to, I think that like it's like the corporate entities are even making ways to like bypass Amazon and FedEx and everything. They're making like this teleporter machine, which is why this exists, so that they can seize like most of the capital that comes from that, instead of having to rely on that part of the supply chain, and they can just teleport shit anywhere they want to go anymore. So they're cutting out the the middleman, I guess, basically. So they're even doing that part, but no borders, no taxes, none of the stuff they would have to pay. Now workers would not get any piece of that savings, I'm sure, but that's it's like they get the teleporter now. They have the access to that. Anyway, that's just I guess we can talk about this for another hour, but
yeah, there's a lot to talk about in this movie. But I mean, I love everything about it. I personally really loved that he ended it on sort of a high note, like a happy note,
hopeful note,
because he's saying that this organization works, right? Organizing works, because this is a movie that the movie never really pretends that individual revenge was going to work. That's not the point. This is not a revenge. This is not Keke Palmer getting revenge on Christy Smith. The third act doesn't even give you Christy Smith getting her comeuppance, and then the credits roll. Like, she gets her. I mean, things go wrong for her, but it doesn't ruin her life. She even says it. She's like, "This is just an annoyance to me," but it does give you the workers winning. It gives you the system being disrupted, and it's not being disrupted just by this heist crew, but it's being disrupted by this collective action that spans from Oakland to China. This global collective action. The sci-fi device, the transportation ring device thing is sort of a MacGuffin, like you said, and it's there to drive home the actual point of the film, which is labor organization. I mean, that's what Boots Riley is really promoting here.
Yeah, what's funny though too is like even like when I was trying to look for bad reviews of it, and I did go into like Letterboxd and look at like negative reviews and that sort of thing. And there are people that hate the shit out of this movie. People that say they walked out of it. People who thought it was just like, what the fuck's going on, or they surprisingly thought it was too boring. And yes, there was even a person who said it was the worst movie they'd ever seen.
Oh, I'm sure.
But what's funny is like, I don't know yet. Maybe this is where we need our Ben Shapiro to come in here.
That wasn't Ben Shapiro saying this is the worst movie.
No. I was going to say, the thing is like, he's the only person I can think of that would want to watch it and try to criticize the actual message of the movie. I don't see anybody anywhere like criticizing like the themes of the movie necessarily. Yeah. It's always, if I had to pin it down to the same notes, it would be like every bad review right now that I can find. It's either doing there's too much going on. He like built a snowball and it's got out of hand or something.
I mean, I understand that critique at least. I don't agree with it necessarily. I think it works, but I see where they're coming from.
The other would be like, one of the others would be like the cast. They say like, not like the cast is bad, but they felt like Keke Palmer, like she's pretty universally praised, but that she's getting the whole film and they kind of neglect the other actresses like Naomi Ackie and Taylor Page. Like they don't get enough to do, basically. I did not feel that way. I felt like they were also almost equally in there. Like, I mean, it obviously is centralized around Keke Palmer's character,
right?
But
yeah, they're supporting, but they get a lot to do.
Yeah, and I think one of the examples I saw was about Sade's friendship with Corvette. Like that they felt like that seemed like forced, like the disagreement they had, like, oh, we're falling apart, we've been friends for forever. Like that was just kind of like just said. There were people bitching about Lakeith Stanfield's character, that this is just like what is this? Like why they were like, it's like a joke, like maybe he's making for himself or something. But I think when I was talking about it, I saw the point of him.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that ever hit me, but they were basically saying like, this is a detour that doesn't need to be there. Like why is this even happening? But I think it makes perfect sense in the movie. Like he is clearly like a distraction, but that's what he is. Like it's showing like there are these outside things that will try to pull you away from like your central purpose or something, or like your goals. And then the other thing would be just that it falls apart in the third act. I mean, that would be the thing that people say the most, that just like there's just he's trying to do all of these points and he's not hitting the landing, basically. Like he's throwing at all this sci-fi shit, and I think I saw one place talking about it's like it seemed kind of punk rock, but he painted himself into a corner, and now he's like, I think they said like literally using magic to get him way out of it. But
yeah, I mean, it's not far-fetched based on what's already happened in the movie, because everything else is so far-fetched that, so to me it works. I mean, I understand people thinking this is maybe too much or thinking that he's heavy-handed or whatever, but I don't agree. I mean, it is heavy-handed, but it's heavy-handed in a way that is delivered in a very entertaining way to where the heavy-handedness isn't a hindrance.
I don't think anything seems out of. Yeah, you set yourself up in a world that all of that other stuff seems to flow naturally. It feels
Well, because
like.
even by the time it hits the sci-fi stuff, the regular world of like the heist crew hitting, it's already been overly stylized, like with the leaning apartment building, Keke Palmer running in place, like little things like that that set up the fact that this is a heightened world. So when the sci-fi device and all the stuff that happens in the third act is introduced, it's not as jarring as it would be had you been watching like a super realistically filmed story. It's already in a world that's over the top.
The crooked skyscraper, by the way, which should just be like how, corporate capitalism is just crooked, I suppose is the actual metaphor. Demi Moore I did notice Demi Moore walks around normally like there's nothing wrong in there.
Really?
And like everybody else is like sliding down the floor like Keke Palmer like can't walk on the floors and stuff, So I think that was a pretty big one that they just kind of he's like, do you get it?
Yeah, get it. Oh man, well I think I've said about all I can say about this for now. Like you said, we could talk about this for another hour because there are so many ideas and so much to talk about. But I think we've made a pretty good case for why everyone should go see this movie if you haven't seen it. Also, sorry. So if you're listening to it now and you haven't seen it, sorry, we just spoiled it all for you. But we warned you. We told you we were going to do that.
The movie goes absolutely bananas at the end of it, and it's worth seeing because it's just fucking nuts. And it just
very funny. Very funny movie. Very entertaining. I cannot wait to see what Boots Riley does next. And I'm going to be watching that I'm a Virgo show as soon as I possibly can because I want to see what else he's done.
Let Boots Riley make any movie he wants to make because it's
let him all of them. Let him make all of them. The next Marvel movie, let him do it, but leave him alone. Give him $20 million and see what happens.
I can stand behind that. Like him directing every movie, that's going to be. Man, that's the world at the end. Would the world maybe be a better place? Probably, but like it just, it just
he might be tired.
Yeah, he'd be tired. I think all of our brains would be tired.
This is Boots Riley's world now. We're just living in it.
Yeah, there you go.
And listen to the Coup if you haven't. Go listen to Guillotine. That's a great one to like start with. That's probably the first one of his I heard. I mean, I Love Booster's great song. That whole album's really great. Kill Your Landlord.
Pick a Bigger Weapon
really
album is also good. So.
Oh yeah, and what's the song? What's the name of it? It's probably his most well-known song, and I can't think of the name of it right now. And I listen to it all the time.
My Favorite Mutiny.
My Favorite Mutiny. Yes, that's the one I'm trying to think of. Yeah, great song. Anyway, super catchy. Anyway, thumbs up from the CinemaShock crew. Good job, Boots Riley. Thank you.
And thank you, voters, for voting for this movie and making me see it on opening night.
Yeah, and I guess if you're listening to this now, we probably should have said this before the spoiler thing, but our June poll will be up today, the same day that we're dropping this episode. So you'll have there'll be 3 movies on that poll that are coming out in June that you'll have a chance to vote to let us know what you want us to watch. It's a lot of blockbusters and stuff in June, so it's probably going to be one of those. But there's some like real bangers coming out this summer, so I can't wait to get into more of these. So yeah, head to cinemashock.net/plus and you can find that poll there. If you're already a member, you should be getting an email notification saying that poll is up. So please vote. Please let us know. Don't let it end in another fucking tie. This one didn't end in a tie. This one pretty succinctly won, but there have been a couple of months where it ends in a tie, and that's annoying to me. I need a front runner.
Yeah, and make it good.
Make it good.
The voters are on a nice streak so far. They've all been a blast. So
they have been good. Yeah. So
let's keep it going.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it for this one then, Gary. We need to tell people where you can be found on the interwebs.
At This Is Gary Horde on all the things.
Yeah, and I'm at Justin_Bishop. The show is at Cinema_Shock. CinemaShock.net for all the stuff. Share this with anyone that you think might be interested in it. Maybe you went to see the movie with a buddy and you guys want to talk it over. Send this to them, and then maybe they'll disagree with everything we said, and you guys can argue about it and let us know. I love to make people fight.
Send this to Ben Shapiro.
Please do. Please. That if he talked about us on his show, it would honestly help us. Even if he hated us, which he would.
Yeah, he would hate this. But yeah, anyway. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
I don't
Until
know if
next
it's
time.
like next week. Yeah.
Very soon.
May the wings of liberty never lose a feather.
And be excellent to each other.